Remember when the entire world just stopped? We were all stuck inside, glued to our screens. But have you ever wondered what all that screen time was really doing for our mental health? Yeah, let's go back to that very strange spring of 2020. In the blink of an eye, our entire universe, all our social connections, our work, our entertainment, it all got squeezed into the size of a glowing rectangle. And of course, we all watched more stuff. Streaming numbers went through the roof. But that brings up a really big question. Was all that media we were consuming actually helping us cope with the massive stress and anxiety? Or were we just, numbing ourselves? Well, to get some real answers, we're going to dig into this fantastic study by Allison Eden and her team, which was published in Frontiers in Psychology. They actually surveyed university students right in the middle of that chaotic first lockdown to see what was really going on. Okay, let's get into it. First, we got to set the scene, because this wasn't some gradual change, right? For students, it was like a switch was flipped overnight. I mean, just look at how fast everything happened. On March 7th, one major university shuts down. Just a few weeks later, by the end of that same month, more than 14 million college students had their lives turned completely upside down. They were sent packing from dorms, cut off from their friends, and facing just total uncertainty. So think about it. All the normal ways you'd blow off steam, hanging out with friends, hitting the gym, going to a party, poof, they were gone. With everyone stuck at home, media wasn't just an option for coping. For millions, it became one of the only options on the table. So how exactly did people use their screens to get through it? Well, the study breaks it down into two totally different approaches. First up, there's what the researchers call hedonic media use. Honestly, this is what most of us think of. It's using media for pure pleasure, a good time, a distraction. Think of it as the comfort food of media. You're binge watching a funny sitcom, playing a fast-paced game, anything to just feel good for a little while. But then you've got the other side of the coin, eudaimonic media use. This is totally different. This is when you're looking for something deeper. You're watching stuff that makes you think, that helps you search for meaning or grapple with life's big questions. It's the media that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Now here is where it gets super interesting. The study found that our emotional state, specifically whether we were feeling stressed or anxious, completely changed which of these digital tools we decided to pick up. And this slide lays out the core finding beautifully. When students felt stressed, that immediate "I'm so overwhelmed right now" feeling, they reached for that hedonic escapist content. They just wanted out. But when they felt anxious, that more general, lingering sense of worry, they actually consumed more of the meaningful, eudaimonic stuff. They weren't just trying to escape, they were trying to make sense of everything. This is where the rubber really meets the road. Because, okay, we're using media to cope, but is it actually working? Which of these strategies were helping us and which, well, might have been making things even worse? The data here is incredibly clear. Using media just to check out, to escape or avoid your feelings, that was actually linked with more negative emotions and poorer mental health. It just didn't work. But using media to find some humor in the chaos or to reframe the situation, to see it in a new light, that was linked to better mental health and feeling more positive. That was the stuff that actually helped. But of course, it's not quite that simple. We're all wired differently, and the study found that our personalities, who we were before the crisis, played a massive role in this whole process. The researchers looked at three really important traits: optimism, hope, and resilience. You can think of these as the psychological resources people had in their toolkit when everything went sideways, and that toolkit changed how they used their screens. And here's a really fascinating twist. You'd probably guess that the most resilient people would only use the good coping strategies. But nope, the study found that when highly resilient and optimistic people did feel stressed, they reacted more intensely across the board. They used media more for helpful stuff like humor, but they also used it more for harmful stuff like avoidance. They didn't just cope better, they just coped harder. So, after digging through all of this, what's the big takeaway? What should we all remember about our own screen time when things get tough? This might be the single most important lesson from the entire study. The total number of hours that students spent watching stuff had absolutely no connection to their well-being. None. What mattered, what made all the difference, was why they were watching. It wasn't about more or less screen time, it was about intentional screen time. The researchers themselves summed it up perfectly. Media can be a really productive tool for coping, but it is not a cure-all. It's not a magic pill. It all depends on how we choose to use it. So that leaves us with a final question. The next time you're feeling overwhelmed and you reach for that screen, ask yourself, is this going to be a refuge or is it just a rabbit hole? Thinking about that could make all the difference.